Biblically accurate Rimi delusion. Let's go. Are you guys ready? Probably not. The answer is always no whenever I ask. It's never yes, which is valid. Yeah. Just one word. Fear. I really don't know what to say. I feel like I've said everything that there is to say, like every single time. Just like, worried. Yeah, worried. Like, there's no way this is gonna be a gentle time, you know? Although, I did finally piece together why, like, everyone other than Anima starting at chapter 7, and then Rimi starting at chapter 8. It has to do with the Dokyun puzzle. Because, like, that happens then, and the key difference is, like, who, Takumi is looking for protection, which was, like, kind of a given, but, like, in the regular story, it Rimi, like, comes and turns off the TV for him, which makes sense that she'll do that again for this, you know? And here we are. Here's the one that matters, the first one. And we need to have a positive reaction, which is different. I don't think we've ever had a positive reaction to this one before. Yeah. Why the hell would I want to go see blood? It'd be way too scary. This wasn't a haunted house or a horror movie. People were really dead and the killer was still on the loose. I didn't want to go anywhere that could be even the slightest bit dangerous. Actually, was that the new gen killer's motive anyway? Was it just some crazy person with a few screws loose, doing it for fun? That was probably the safest assumption. Not that I cared anyway. It had nothing to do with me. And by the way, I happen to be a bit of a mass murderer myself. And what's more, no matter how many I killed, everybody still called me a hero. Of course, this isn't me, so lol. Just comparing me and the killer made it clear how much better 2D is than reality. QED. I desperately tried to refuse Misumi's offer, while imagining myself delivering a flurry of violent jabs. The murder? Oh yeah, I'll kick their butt the second I see them. In my delusions, at least, I could kill anybody, and save anybody too. That's the same. Like, I remember that line specifically. But anybody who actually went and did that stuff in the real world was just an idiot. They weren't thinking about what would happen next. The new gen killer, for example, was surely going to be caught before too long. Then they spent the next few decades in prison before finally being given the death penalty. I knew exactly what I wanted to say to them. You should have just done hitting your delusions. I went to buy dinner. I took the route I always used to go to the local convenience store. From the base, it took about 3 minutes to get there. I knew the route well, with its filthy, dark street. But today, it felt strange, like I wandered to another world. Everything looked the same as always, but it felt like I was coming here for the first time. It was the opposite of deja vu, Jemai vu, they call it. I read about it on the internet once. There's this odd smell, like rotting garbage. I could feel the humidity clinging to my skin. If I hadn't known better, I would have assumed it had just rained. The air felt sticky. And then the sound. I could hear a faint sound, like something dragging. I stopped to listen. The sound was coming from the back of a small alley on my left, at least as near as I could tell. There were no street lights, and all the houses around me had their lights turned off. So, no matter how hard I looked, I couldn't see what was going on in there. I'm sorry to believe that you could find this kind of deep darkness in modern Japan, especially in Shibuya, which ranked among Shinjuku for being a city that never sleeps. It felt a little like a haunted house. No, there was one thing that made it different than a haunted house. This darkness wasn't artificial. I didn't want to go. Going in was a mistake. I tried to tell myself not to go in. but for some reason, my legs took a step forward, as if that sound I kept hearing was drawing me in. I felt terrified. I knew I shouldn't go any further. My heart was pounding. The sweat was pouring down my face. Going in. Someone's pretty static whispered in my ears. Suddenly, someone grabbed my upper arm. It was so sudden. I panicked, and I tried to scream, but I couldn't. The most I could do was squeeze the air out of the back of my throat. I wanted to run away in fear, but my body wasn't listening to me at all. My legs froze and refused to move as much as a millimeter. There was a hand grabbing my arm. I could see it. It was a deep green and thin like a mummy's, with blood veins protruding all around it. It didn't even look alive. There it is. I could easily have fallen to the ground and pissed myself right on the spot, but the voice felt strangely pleasant. The fear within me that had threatened to explode a moment ago gradually began to subside. Dangerous. Low, tense voice. I slowly turned around. The first thing I saw was the crest of Suime Academy. It was on the chest of his Suime uniform. The person was wearing a skirt, so probably this was a girl. But I didn't have the courage to look at her face. She was closer than I thought, and it was all I could do to look away. Something was wrong. I looked back at the hand holding my arm. It had the thin, dainty fingers of a girl. It didn't look like anything like the grotesque green thing I'd seen a moment ago. Who was this girl? What did her face look like? What does her face look like as she looks at me? What was she doing here? I couldn't tell why, but it felt like I knew this girl. As I looked at my arm, and the pale white hand holding it, my man began to create an illusion. The girl. Tied her hair with ribbons. Yes. Wore glasses. No. Wore over-the-knee socks. Yes. Wore a long skirt. No. Was posing like a soldier out of tension. Yes. 1,000 doubts raced through my mind, but in the end, I couldn't speak a word, or just let my head hang there. The dragging sound stopped. Go home. And instead, I could smell. Okay? Takumi? I could smell blood on her. This is good stuff. I was sitting in front of my computer monitor. I gulped down some soda in an effort to contain my excitement, and then did a big stretch in my reclining chair. That was a good delusion, if I did say so myself. It even had a mysterious teenage girl. Maybe I could give her a name and make her a repeating character in my delusions. This was a little game I played a lot. I could cast her alongside another character. Maybe Seira-tan. She seemed a different type than Seira-tan, though. Either way, the great thing about delusions was that you could mix up 2D and 3D. And in my delusions, I was God. Anything I wanted to happen happened. Maybe I'll add in something a little naughty next time. I was so used to being in my base that I actually whispered aloud. I forgot that this was a net cafe. I quickly put my hand over my mouth. I looked around. I didn't feel like anybody had heard me, at least. 2 hours earlier. The hospital room was bathed in orange light of the setting sun. It was as quiet as if time itself had stopped. There was only one person in the room, a boy sitting in a wheelchair. He may have been asleep, because he wasn't moving at all. It was dinner time, and at most hospitals you would see nurses quickly rushing between rooms to deliver meals. But there was no sound coming from the hallway either. The door opened, breaking the silence. The girl came into the room. The boy in the wheelchair looked up at her, but didn't say anything. For a moment, she stood by the entrance. She looked around the room with what seemed to be an expression of sadness on her face. The room was cramped and gloomy and smelled like disinfectant. This is where the two of them lived. It was a place cut off from the rest of the world, where no one else ever came to visit. No doctors, no nurses, nor their family or the people they knew. The boy and the girl never spoke much. It was the boy who was hospitalized here. He'd been in a coma for an entire year and only woken up a month ago. The girl was simply living here. She trusted him, but theirs wasn't a physical relationship. There was certainly no romantic love between them. She simply wanted to repay her debt to him. Nothing less and nothing more. The boy seemed to be treating her with a deliberate coldness. He even told her not to come, but she still came. Part of it was that she simply had nowhere else to go. While he was in his coma, she took care of him all by herself. When it was time to sleep, she slept on the sofa in the room. That hadn't changed even now that he'd woken up. I bought dinner. She spoke in a gentle voice and showed him a plastic bag from a convenience store. Her voice seemed to shake the still air of the hospital room. It breathed life anew into a dead world, forcing movement to begin. At least, that was how it seemed to the girl, but she didn't share this thought with the boy. Instead, she set several small, cheap, individually wrapped pastries onto the currently unoccupied bed. I always wonder, is this really all you want for dinner? I don't have that much time left anyway. Sorry for making you go buy it. It's fine. I have to buy my own dinner anyway. Don't worry about it. She laughed, a little too deliberately, then took her egg salad sandwich over to the windowsill. Then she opened the window. A cool fall breeze blew into the hospital room. She let the pleasant feeling of the wind wash over her, and then sat down right on the window's edge. The hospital room was on a high floor. If she fell, she'd die instantly. But the girl showed no sign of fear, and simply began to chow down on her egg salad sandwich. The boy in the wheelchair didn't say anything either, nor did he reach out for the pastries. Hey, let me ask you one more time. Are you really going to awaken him? Yeah. I talked to him last night, and it was obvious. Nozomi is already after him. NoAH 2 is almost finished. I need to hurry. Is it something you really have to do? No matter what? Yeah. But then you're no different than Nozomi. Terrifying him, pushing him to the breaking point. He's the only one. But if he awakens, you'll die. I knew that from the start. I think it's what I deserve. We're trying to make him responsible for everything. The girl was still looking out the window at the setting sun. She didn't turn back to look at the boy. With the look on her face, one might think she was about to cry. Couldn't we just get rid of him? If we did, I'd have to create a new me and go into a coma for at least a year. By the time I woke up, NoAH 2 would be complete, and the whole world would be filled with despair. The boy's voice was very gentle, but not without a note of bitterness. The girl heard it inside. I'm against this. We can't let NoAH 2 be completed. I know that, but when I think about the position he's in, it's just too sad. And I can't just sit here and watch you commit suicide. It's not suicide. I'll fix this somehow. She spoke suddenly, her voice full of resolve. For the first time, the boy moved a little, as if surprised. Somehow. And the girl finished her egg salad sandwich, jumped down from the window, and turned to face the boy. For some reason, she made a pose like she was saluting.
私が
I'll protect him from Nozomi.
彼を守る。そうすれば
If I can do that,
あ
you
なた
won't
は死
die.
なないから。
それじゃあ
But then he'll
彼
have
が
no
生ま
reason
れた
to
意
have
味が
been
なくなる
born.
し
It
何
won't
の
solve
解決にも
anything.
ならない。
Noah 2
ノア
will.
2が
ノア2
I'll
も
do something about
私
Noah
が何
2,
とかす
too.
るって。
君には
You can't.
無理だよ。
もう
I've made my
決めた
decision.
の。私は
I'm going to oppose you
あなたを
in the name
守
of
るために
protecting you.
あなたと対立します。
Her smile was gentle, but deeply fragile. When he saw it, the boy was at a loss for words.
あなたの予言による
According
と
to your prophecy,
今
a new
日
murder is
新
going
し
to
い事件
happen
が起きる
today,
んだよ
right?
ね。
予言じゃない。
It's not a
事
prophecy.
実だよ。
It's reality.
彼らの妄
I
想
saw
を見
their
たから。
delusions.
だったら
And then I have to
彼
make
を
sure
そ
he
の
doesn't
事
get
件に
anywhere
近づ
near
け
it.
させないようにしなくちゃ。私ちょ
I'll
っと
be
行
on
っ
my
てくる
way.
ね。
And the girl started walking toward the door.
君が邪魔をして
Even
も
if you try to stop me,
僕は予定
I'm
通
going
り
to awaken
彼
him,
を目覚めさ
just
せ
as
る
I planned. As she opened the door, she came to a stop. The hallway was empty. No one was there. That meant no voices, no other sounds.
ね
Hey. What do you
私た
think
ち
the
って
two of us are?
え、何なんだろう。
We've been here for over a year
誰にも
with
存在を
nobody
知られず
noticing
に
us.
ここにもう1年以上いる。ここにいると
Whenever I'm here,
自
I
分
start
って
to
いう
feel
存
like
在
I
は
don't really
幻なん
exist.
じゃないかって思えてきちゃうの。ジメジメ気分
Maybe
にな
I'm
る
just
のは
feeling gloomy
やっ
because
ぱ
I'm
り
in a
病院
hospital.
だからかな。
リミ
Rimi,
君
you
は関
shouldn't
わ
get
るべきじゃ
involved in
ない。
this. His voice was plaintive as he begged her. The girl did not turn around.
パン
Make sure
ち
you
ゃん
eat the
と食べるん
pastries,
だよ。
okay? And she left. That was all she said. Interesting. She heard the sound too. At first, it was a whooshing sound, like something slicing through the air. She'd also seen the strange man who held the bag that made that sound. She'd chased him, but he'd gotten away. It was after that when she heard the echoing of the other sound, the loud, metallic sound of sticks being pounded into a wall. She could still hear the whooshing sound a little too. The two sounds seemed to resonate, making her ears hurt.
手遅れ。
It was too late. She bit her lip a little, then ran toward the source of the sound. What she saw there was a corpse staked to the wall in the shape of a cross. She panicked and looked around. In all honesty, she didn't care whether the victim on the wall was alive or dead. Of course, if they could be saved, that would be for the best, but it wasn't her highest priority. Takumi Nishijo couldn't be allowed to get anywhere near here. She had to keep him from feeling afraid. Where was he? She looked back at the body. She couldn't believe her eyes. She only glanced away for a few seconds, but in that time, countless stakes had been embedded in the body. Only a moment ago, there had only been a few stakes. The body had been largely unharmed, with no signs of blood. But now, she was looking at something beyond belief. Shocked, she struggled to keep from throwing up. Her vision went blurry as she began to tremble.
妄想が
The delusions
現
were
実を
invading
侵食してる
reality. She realized that other things had changed too. Her clothes were different. She was wearing what seemed like some sort of high school uniform. She didn't recognize it at all. Her whole body was covered in blood. In her hand, she held cross-shaped stakes.
嘘。
No way.
これっ
Is
て
this...
妄想が
The
シンクロ
delusions are synchronizing? Someone else's delusions were affecting what she saw. The brutal murder in front of her, her clothes, the brilliant red blood. Were these real?
違う。
No. They weren't. The blood didn't smell like anything. The stakes in her hands had no weight and didn't feel cold. She touched the blood on her forehead, just like she thought. There was no wetness, no slick sensation. Carefully, she reached out towards one of the stakes pinning the body in front of her to the wall. She tried to grab it, but her hand merely passed through it instead. It was all just a delusion. An incredibly powerful delusion. A delusion that could become real. It had already been created. All that was left was to reboot it, and it would become reality. She felt worried. What should she do now? She'd never been inside the territory of such a strong negative delusion. The Kogomaniac responsible may have already killed Takumi Nichijo. The body in front of her could transform into him at any moment. She let out a soft, panicked cry, and then...
あの時の
the pictures of Shogun's links.
リンク写真
She heard the voice of a frightened boy behind her. I see you. In a large general hospital in Yogi, it was time for rounds on the ward, so most of the nurses were away. There was only a single young nurse at the nurses' station. She was staring at her laptop expressionlessly. She had her cell phone to her ear, even though she wasn't on break. Cell phones were forbidden in the hospital, but she made no effort to conceal herself. Her motionless eyes were staring at a chat log on her laptop screen.
ええ、そう。
Yes,
現
that's
れ
right.
たのよ。
Takumi
日常
Nichijo has shown himself.
間違いないっすか？
You're sure?
多分。
Probably. There was a man on the other end of the line. It was clear from the tone of their voices that they weren't talking about work.
名前はハンドル
He
ネームを
was
使
using
って
the
いる
screen
けれ
name,
ど、
but he knew
あ
the
の公式の
formula.
ことを知っていたもの。ログをコピーして送るわ。
I send you the log. With robotic movements, the nurse put her hand on the laptop's mouse and went to copy the log. Suddenly, she stopped and furrowed her brows.
ら、
どうしたんす？
What's wrong? She didn't answer, though. Instead, she squinted as she looked more closely at the monitor. The LCD screen still displayed a chat log, but something was different than it had been just a few seconds ago. There was no way it could change. This was a log, not a real chat. But a moment ago, there was nothing unusual about it at all, and now she could clearly sense that something was wrong.
ログの書き
The
込み時間が
timestamps on the log,
変わってる。
they've changed.
どういうことだ？
What do you mean? The man must have sensed something, because he lowered his voice.
ついさっきまでは
And there's nothing
不自然
unusual
な
at
とこ
all
ろなんて
about
な
this
か
a
ったの
moment
に。
ago.
こ
What's
れ
going on
一
here?
体どうなって。
落ち着け。
Calm down.
相手
We're
は
up against an
化け物級
incredibly
のギガ
powerful
マニアック。
gigomaniac.
細工され
Did
た
he
のかし
alter
ら。
it?
自分の
He didn't want
実在を
anyone
知
to
られ
know
た
that
くない
he's real, probably.
書き込み時間が
Changing the
変化したことで
timestamps just makes it
自作
look
自
like
演
he
のよ
wants
う
to
に
be
見えてくるわ。
found.
そう見える。
If that's how it looks to
それ
you,
が狙い
then
って
that's
こと
what
だ。
he wants it to look like.
現実を
He made reality into a delusion.
気をつけろし。
Be careful, Shino.
見られているぞ。
You're being watched
やつに。
by him. The nurse, Shino, felt a tickle at the nape of her neck. She covered her neck with her hands and glanced behind her, but there was no one else at the nurse's station.
信仰の
May the
救い
divine
あれ
light。save us. She offered up the prayer of her faith, as if to ward off her terror. Interesting. Like, I knew Rimi's route was gonna answer a lot of questions, but I don't know. I guess I wasn't expecting an answer for the change in the chat logs. I honestly kind of forgot about it. Because, like, there's just so much everything else, you know? Me sees Rimi, it's like, oh wait, is Rimi gonna have a different perspective thing again? Not every time. Rimi Sakihata was walking down the hall of Suimei High's second-year classrooms. With a blank look on her face, she wasn't used to this uniform yet, and she'd never been here before. The other students were ignoring her. She was actually really nervous, but she was trying her hardest not to show it. She headed for one of the classrooms, steps unsteady, but eyes locked dead ahead. She stopped right in front of class 2C.
ここか。
So this is it. She already knew. Now this was Takumi Nishijo's class. She put her hand on the closed door. Only then did she realize that her fingers were shaking. Oh. I wish I could have just been a student here. The wish passed through her brain, but she didn't let it develop into a delusion. With a small sigh, she flung open the door. Good morning, everyone! Her blank expression was gone, as if it never existed. She was loud and cheerful enough to startle the rest of the class. She put her right hand up to her forehead in something like a salute, and greeted the rest of the class. The class fell dead silent. School hadn't started yet, but half the students were already in their seats. They all looked at her, suspicious and confused. It was only natural that they would be. Nobody in this class, no, this entire school knew that Rimi even existed. That's why she needed to ensure that she had everybody's attention. Ah. Her D-sword was in her hand, but nobody reacted. The blade, with its strange metallic wings, was still in the delusion stage, and nobody could see it. For now, that was enough. Her mind wove a delusion. Her feelings were unleashed in the eyes of everyone looking at her. They all blinked in unison. And the air in the room, which had frozen with Rimi's far too cheerful greeting, suddenly relaxed. Rimi smiled at the classroom once more. Good morning. Hey, there's Takihata. Hey. You're too loud for it to be this early, Rimi. Try to keep it down, would you? Neil spoke to her as if they'd known her for a long time. A few seconds ago, the class hadn't known her at all. But that just changed. Rimi's delusion was transmitted to their minds, creating a shared awareness. The entire class became aware of the fact that Rimi Sakihata was the classmate of theirs in Class 2C at Suime Academy. 2 days ago, she tried it on Takumi Nishijo, Taku, and it hadn't worked well. She was worried it might not work this time. But it looked like she was worried over nothing. Her classmates all smiled at her, and she breathed a sigh of relief. She dissolved her D-sword and headed for a desk in the back where nobody was sitting. This desk was also something she created from her delusions. Rimi set her bag down on it, but instead of sitting down, she walked toward one of the male students.
Yo,
Hey,
Rimi.
Rimi. Hello, Daisuke Misumi. Daisuke Misumi. Daisuke Misumi. Rimi said the name 3 times, as if feeling it out. Why did you say my name 3 times? And my full name too. I just kind of felt like it. Daichi? Misumi was Taku's friend. He had a handsome face and a clean-cut appearance. Yeah, it's a problem because he's a bastard. Rimi had no idea how he'd come up to be friends with Taku. Because he's goofy, I don't know. It was possible that the relationship was fake, kept intact only by one of Takumi's delusions. I guess that's possible, but I think Misumi is just goofy. Or maybe Misumi had just taken a liking to him. It didn't matter which. What mattered was that he was Taku's friend, and that Rimi's own delusions had created her new memories within him. Where's Taku? I'm not here yet. Wait, is he coming today? Probably. I guess that's why you're Taku's guardian. You know his schedule well. Yumi couldn't help but chuckle. She felt guilty. She was changing people's memories with her delusions. Nobody but her knew that something had changed. Everybody was friendly and nice to her, but the relationships were all lies. She thought she was used to loneliness, but being in that classroom made her feel more alone than she'd ever been in her life. Oh, I wonder if we'll get the perspective of Rimi and Daisuke Misumi listening in on the detectives. Maybe not. Yeah, I think if we were, we would have gotten it already. Meow meow meow. Meow 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 meow. And I do like that we're getting like more like Rimi perspective and like that answers like a lot of questions. but like at the same time, it really doesn't like help me figure out what to expect is gonna happen. Not even a little bit of an expectation. I know the best thing with Chaos Set is to expect nothing, but still. Oh, handy. Yumi Sakihato was standing alone in a dark room, head slumped. The room's owner, Takumi Nichijou, was nowhere to be seen. The door hadn't been locked, so she'd been able to walk right in. Rimi looked at the time on her phone. It was a little before 10 p.m. She wondered if Taku was still at Scramble Crossing. She wanted to go help him. She tried, in fact. But the crush of people in Scramble Crossing was so intense that she'd barely been able to move. The boy's psychic show ended before she could get to O-Front. Just as it had ended, she heard Takumi's voice. He wanted her to get Nanami's hand back. It was rare for Takumi to ask Rimi for something. Nanami had been kidnapped by Nozomi, and right now, they were doing horrible things to her. Takumi's mind reading had shown him that much. Rimi had known Nanami in the past, and hearing this made her heart feel like it would burst. There was a cardboard box on the sofa. Inside was a human hand, Nanami's phone, and a cute little bangle. When she saw it, Rimi felt speechless. She was sad, frustrated, and worried about Nanami. And at the same time, the memories of what she'd suffered in the past came flashing back to her. She bit her lip and spent a while staring at the severed hand. She took a single deep breath to calm herself down, and then closed the box lid. After resealing it tightly with masking tape, she put it under her arm and left the room. She took out her phone and used its built-in TV tuner. A moment ago, they'd been doing a live broadcast from Scramble Crossing. She'd wanted to see it. But all the channels were showing nothing but commercials. The live broadcast must have ended. Taku probably wasn't at Scramble Crossing anymore. Then, with nothing else to do, Rimi headed back to the room where Takumi waited. The lights were off and the room was dark. Like always, Takumi was in his wheelchair, not his bed.
ナナミの腕は
Do you have Nanami's hand? Yeah,
持ってきた。
I brought it. She handed him the box.
ありがとう。
Thank you.
直せるかな？
Can they reattach it?
直せるよね。
They can, right?
わからない。
I don't know.
でもこの
But
病
this
院なら
hospital has a
冷凍保
cold
存しておけ
storage
る設備
system.
がある。
It'd be a lot better to keep it cold, rather than just leave it to rot. But there's no guarantee they could ever reattach it. She felt like what he was trying to tell her.
大丈夫。
Don't worry.
きっと
They'll be able to fix it.
治るよ。
Rimi decided to be optimistic.
きっと治るって
She'll be okay.
信じ
I
る。
believe it.
もっとも
Of course.
その前に
We have to
ナ
get
ナ
her
ミちゃん
back
を助け出さなきゃい
first.
けないけど。
ナナミは殺される
I
こと
don't
はな
think
いと
she'll
思
be
う。
killed.
焦って動
We
くこ
don't
と
need
は
to
ないよ。
rush.
冷静なんだ
You're
ね。
pretty calm right now.
ごめん。
Sorry.
今言った言
Just
葉は
forgot I said
忘れて。
that.
それより
Anyway,
タクは今ど
do
こ
you
に
know
い
where
るかわか
Taku
る？
is?
この病院に
He
搬送
was
され
brought
てき
to
たよ。
this hospital.
精神科の
He's
病室
asleep
で
in
眠
the
って
psych
る。
ward.
そうなの？
Really? Yumi's eyes went wide, and she ran out of the room. The hospital was closed to visitors, and the lights were turned down. She walked softly down the hallways as she went. She already knew that people from Nozomi and the Cosmic Church of Divine Light had infiltrated the hospital staff. She couldn't do anything that would attract attention. When she got to the room Takumi had told her about, she made sure there was nobody inside before slowly opening the door. The room's furnishings and walls were a solid white, without a trace of warmth to them. Mimi soundlessly walked over to the bed. Taku was sleeping there. His brow was furrowed as if he was in pain, and occasionally he would moan. His forehead was damp with sweat. Rimi softly stroked his cheek.
ごめんね。
I'm sorry.
あなたを
I
守
couldn't
ってあげら
protect
れな
you,
くて。
she whispered sadly. Kozo P. I feel like I say that every time I get to this delusion. Kozo P, my beloved. So true. Oh, are we gonna get Rimi's perspective on that? No? Okay. As he passed by me, he put his hand on my shoulder.
俺もうついていけねえや。
This is too much for me.
あとは任せた。
You can have her. Let me see me. He allowed an annoyed sigh and left the room. Don't leave me alone with her. Yase seemed completely uninterested in Misami's sudden departure, as she didn't even notice at all. It was as if he'd never been in the room to begin with. She was always like that, always above everything that was going on around her. It was like she saw something different than everyone else.
君が生み
You
出したん
created
で
it,
しょ。
didn't you?
あの時の
That flower bed.
それで悟ったの。
That's how I realized.
君はすでに目覚めている。
Realized you'd already awakened.
僕は
I'm not
ギ
a
ガロマニアックスじゃ
giggle
ないよ。
ギガロ
A giggle.
何？
What?
ギガロマニアックスでしょ。
Gigglomaniac, right?
あ
Sana
青い
we
背中
told me
聞いた
about them.
青い
Sana
背
Aoi?
の。そう、
I see.
彼女
Her.
一度だけ会っ
I've
た
met
ことがある。
Just once.
グラジオールの
She
黒騎士
too is a Black Knight of Gladio. A Black Knight of Gladio. Gigglomaniac. Do the words mean the same thing? I mean,
とにかく
anyway,
僕違うんだ。
that wasn't me.
理
I
想だ
didn't even get the D sword.
結局手に入れられなかった。
神罰を乗り越
Overcome
え
the
て、
divine punishment.
そうすれば
And if you can do that,
剣は
the
召
sword
喚
will
さ
be
れ、
summoned.
神罰
Divine punishment,
苦しみ、
suffering,
心的負荷
an
の爆
explosion
発、
of mental stress.
心の扉の
The
向こ
other
う
side
は
of the heart's door. Or
Aru.
perhaps
精神的
psychological
拷問。
torture.
言い方はいろいろ。
There are any number of ways to describe it.
僕
The-
これまでにもたくさん
suffered a lot.
苦しんできたよ。
Even now, I was suffering. The whole country was laughing at me. The police thought I was a killer. Shogun and Yua were threatening me. And there was none of me.
私は精
I
神
used to
病
be
院
in
に
a
いた。
mental hospital
子供の頃の
when
話。
I was little.
う
Oh,
ん
yeah. I knew about that. I read about it online. But why was she talking to me about this?
そこには5年
I
弱。
was there for almost 5 years.
私の心はと
My
ても
heart
弱
was
く、
weak,
だから攻撃した。
so I lashed out
周囲にあるもの
at
すべ
everything
て、
around me,
同時に
and at the same
自分
time,
のこと
at
も。
myself. Ayase began to speak, slowly, like a whisper. Sitting there in her pastel pajamas, fingers running along the creases in the sheets. There's no trace of the strength I'd seen at her concert. Was this the fest Was the fest I'd seen then even real?
私はよく
I
窓
used
ガ
to
ラ
break
スを割ってい
windows.
たの。問題児。
That's the problem, child, you see. There was a small smile on her lips.
割れたガラスの破
The glass would shatter into
片。そこに
fragments, and the
いつもぼん
fragments,
やりと
I
見え
could
て
see
い
it,
た。
kind of.
何
See
が
what?
剣が。
The sword.
でも、何
But
年
for
も
years,
それが
I
何な
didn't
の
know
かわ
what
から
it
なかっ
was.
た。ようやくそれが
And by
理
the
想
time
だ
I
と知
finally
ったの。
realized it was a D sword,
施設に入って、
I'd been in the hospital
ほ
for
ど
4
経った頃。
years.
それまで私
Until
は
then,
好
I
き
hadn't
放題
listened to
言っていたけ
anybody
ど、
or done what anyone wanted. I just done whatever I wanted to do.
ある日、
But then,
施設の
one day,
職員が一斉に
all
入
the
れ替わ
staff
っ
changed.
た。私は
They tortured me in countless different ways
いろ
over
い
the
ろ拷
course of
問をさ
months.
れて、心が壊れ
They
てし
pushed
ま
my
う間
mind
に
to the breaking point.
大いなる意志の
I
声
heard the voice of the great will,
やっと
and I was
召喚
finally
できた
able to summon it.
拷問
Torture.
それが神罰
It
と
was divine punishment.
邪神を打ち
A
破
pure
る
wicked
力を
heart is
手に入れ
needed
るには
if one is to gain the
Just
power
another
to destroy
just
wicked
another.
hearts. Did that mean she was telling me to suffer more? That if I didn't, I wouldn't get the sword? If so, I'd rather just forget the whole thing. I didn't want to suffer. I'd already been through so much. Just leave me alone. I put my hands up to my head, suddenly feeling an urge to scream as loud as I could. But Ayase's voice wouldn't let me. Interesting. I was looking at my D-sword with wide eyes. Jade swung her sword fast and hard, but blocking it was easy. The D-swords were resonating with each other. There was a loud howling noise coming from them. I could feel her negative emotions, her anger and hate, passing through the weapon and into my body. Oh yeah. Sakihata was a gigglomaniac too, NoAH. Doku was lying there in shock behind me. The way he was lying there, odds of him being able to get away on his own were next to none. I had to deal with Aoi somehow.
その男が何をした
Do you know what that man did?
IR2 とい
The
う公
R2
式
formula was his.
知ってるよ
I know. I cut her off. I didn't want Taku to hear the formula's name.
それなら
タ
Then,
クを覚醒させ
if
れ
you awaken Taku,
ばもっと
something even worse will happen.
その前に殺
I'll
す
kill him before that happens.
あなたには
You
無理だよ
can't. Aoi was aggressive, but she had the wrong idea about how to use a D-sword. She was too direct, too emotional. If you wanted to use the weapon as a sword, you could, but you'd be nothing more than child play at sword fighting. But you'd be nothing more than a child playing at sword fighting. There we go. Maybe someone who practiced using swords could do something with it, but a teenage girl swinging it around was no threat at all.
西条は死ぬべ
Nishijo
き男
needs
だ
to die.
この世に最
He's
悪を
brought
振りまいた
disaster to the whole world. Her hatred had taken over her mind. I could see the negative delusions within her. They become a black mist, stabbing into my dead spots. She wasn't doing it deliberately, and there wasn't anything special about her. That was a power that Kiglomaniacs had. They could perceive the royal of other humans' emotions. They could see another person's feelings. I turned my consciousness to face the images that were forcing their way into my mind. The emotions that were driving Aoi to hate. The memories. I could see them. Her suffering and sorrow. The memories of the past that ate at her soul. I could see them. I could use them to my advantage. I stared at Aoi. I wove a delusion. I created a false image that would tear at the wounds in her heart. Aoi shook with surprise. She slowly lowered her sword and stood there, unmoving. Her expression seemed confused. Her eyes were empty. She wasn't looking at me anymore. She wasn't looking at reality anymore. She was inside the delusion I created. All I'd done was give her a little push. Her obsessions would do the rest, and create the story I wanted her to see. Now I couldn't fight anymore. So... I froze. The voice was echoing directly in my head. After you mess up Sana's heart, what are you going to do? Are you going to kill her? Huh? I look over toward the shipping container. If you really are going to kill her... The blade was wreathed in. An overwhelming menace, an intense ferocity, and a destructive elegance. So that was Orihara's D-sword. You're going on my bad person list. And the people who go on the list. She raised the D sword and laughed loudly. 'Cause if he kills them all,
私は
I'm...
殺せ
Kill them! Taku screamed.
セ
Sena and Kosupi are both my enemies. They were my enemies the whole time. So kill them.
殺しちゃえよ
I don't want to die.
痛くない
Taku, be quiet. Okay, you're on the list. Takumi. Morihara smiled happily. And now, I'm going to kill you both. It was like fighting a hurricane. Morihara charged at me with inhuman speed, catching me off guard. Her D-sword came down like a stake. I barely managed to block. The impact blew me backwards. I just barely stayed on my feet. She followed up immediately with horizontal slash. I tried to deflect it, but I failed. My sword took the full impact of the blow. My arms went numb. Die, die! Her speed was overwhelming my defenses. I didn't have time to counterattack. Nor was she so used to fighting with her D-sword. Her tiny body was flailing the gigantic sword around randomly. It seemed to be constantly off balance. Her footsteps were unsteady, because she could fall over at any moment. It was as if she wasn't swinging the blade, but the weapon had a life of its own. So both you and Takumi are bad people, huh? I'll kill you both. I won't let you kill Taku. As I desperately tried to block Orihara's attacks, I attempted the same trick I used on Aoi. I looked at Orihara's negative emotions. And the image that came to my mind was a mirror. I sent the delusion into her dead spot. She suddenly froze. Tears started to fall from her eyes. I sighed, relieved. I need to take Taku and get out of here now. And then I gasped, realizing something was wrong. I couldn't see Aoi. I looked around. She was standing at the edge of the roof. Aoi! I hurried over to her, but before I could, her body staggered and fell over the ledge. Huh? I heard the sound of something hitting the ground. The sound of something being crushed against the ground. It was faint and far away. Was she dead? Was Aoi dead? Because of the delusion I showed her? No, I didn't mean to. A powerful strike hit me from behind, an intense impact, like I was hit by a truck. My brain rattled in my skull. I flew backwards, helplessly. I was slammed into the ground. Aching pain ran through my whole body. The sword hadn't cut me, but she'd hit me hard with it. My vision was swimming. I tried to stand up, but couldn't. I could barely tell who I was. I had a mild concussion, probably. I used all my energy to look up. Who am I? 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 Orihara was staggering around randomly, hands up against her head. She was shaking her head violently. Had the delusion I showed her made her go crazy? Who am I? Who am I? She was after Taku. She was going to kill Taku. Why didn't he run? I was still here. I had to stop her. I clenched my hand tight, but the D-sword wasn't in it. I dropped it when she'd hit me. I could see it on the ground just a few feet away. Die. 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 Help me! Taku was begging for my help. I had to help him. I couldn't let her kill him. But it was too far away to do anything. Orihara was already holding the D-sword above her head. It would only take a second for her to kill him. He was lying on the ground, shaking, unable to move. In less than a second, I would come down and crush him. I had to help him, but there was no time. Countless voices rose up within me. My thoughts were a confused jumble. Countless pairs of eyes stared at me from within my heart. Countless mouths belonging to me were whispering. The whispers joined together, becoming a flood of voices, stealing away my sanity. I forced myself to stand up, but it was all I could do. No, I won't make it. I won't let you kill him. I grit my teeth. Taku is going to die. Kill Kozue Orihara. As long as Taku was safe, nobody else's life mattered. No, that wasn't true. Kill. Actually, it would be better if Taku died here. Kill Kozue Orihara. Kill Takumi Nichijo. That's what Takumi wants. What Rimi Sakihata wants, right? No. No! I'm... The D-sword was in my hand. It had been on the ground, but now it was in my hand. The sensation of ripping through flesh. I had no idea how I'd close the distance between myself and Orihara, but my D-sword was stabbed deep into her back. This wasn't what I wanted to do. I didn't mean to kill her. Or did I? Was that what I really wanted to do? Orihara turned around at me in shock. Sakihata. It hurts, Nora. No. I didn't mean to kill her. No more. My D-sword wriggled in the wound. Like it had a will of its own. Like it was shaking with joy at being covered in blood. At being able to take a life. I shook my head no. The D-sword, still stuck in her back, began to clack its wings. No. Fangs. Was ready to devour her. No. No. I tried to pull it out, but I couldn't. I couldn't move. I couldn't take my hand off the sword. Orihara spat up blood. The blood fell on my sword and... No! Blood flew everywhere. Beautiful crimson feathers, falling down like rain. No. This isn't what I wanted. I looked around for someone to help me. Taku was looking at me like I was a monster. I didn't mean to kill them. I didn't mean to kill them. But I had. No. Strangles Takumi. Sana and Kozupi were dead. They died right in front of me. Rimi had killed them. And Anima was asleep on my sofa. After Kozupi had died, Rimi had started shaking and screaming and then passed out. It had taken me a while to recover from the shock, but I was so scared, and I certainly didn't want to see Kozupi's bloody corpse anymore. I picked Rimi up and brought her inside. Rimi would let out an occasional moan, but no matter how many times I called her name, she wouldn't get up. I sat on the floor, waiting for her to wake up. My body was shaking so badly. Kozupi and Sana were dead. They weren't like the new gen victims. They weren't strangers. They were people I knew. People I knew. The three of us had all eaten gari kuns together the other day. Me, Sana, and Kozupi. I looked at the photo we'd taken, bit my lip. My mind kept replaying the nightmare I just experienced over and over again. The bright red of Kozupi's blood, the slick, glistening red bones sticking out of her body, the empty, lifeless eyes. And the fear and indescribable, awful feeling that comes with seeing a person cease to be a person. And the sight of her tiny body being torn apart refused to leave my brain. I never realized just how fragile a human being was. I felt like I was going to throw up. I'd already thrown up 3 times, actually. What had happened to Senna? This is an 8-story building. Nobody could survive a fall from that height. She was probably, no, definitely dead. And the 2 of them were dead. This was impossible. It wasn't happening. It was a dream. It had to be a dream. They died in such horrible ways. It was Rimi that killed them too. I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't believe it. But it was the truth. I had no idea what caused Senna and Kozubi to change so abruptly. It said something about IR too. It probably had something to do with the scribbles in my old essay. But it didn't matter now. Knowing that Rimi was a gigalomaniac didn't shock me that much either. Rimi had fought them to protect me. Maybe she'd gone too far, but I wasn't gonna blame her for it. Still, it wouldn't be long before Rimi and I were arrested by the police. Senna and Kozupi's bodies were still out there. It wouldn't be long at all before somebody found them and called the cops. I couldn't let them arrest me. I wouldn't let them arrest me. I could just tell them the truth. I didn't attack the 2 of them. It was Rimi, and Senna had attacked us first, so it was self-defense. But of course, that wouldn't work. I knew that much. They were practically ready to arrest me over the crucified case. I was sure it would be the same this time. And I couldn't live without Rimi either. I needed Rimi here to protect me from Shogun. If anything, I was glad Rimi was a gigalomaniac. It meant that Rimi wasn't helpless. She wasn't just a friendly teenage girl. She had the power to fight Shogun, and she was on my side. And so I wanted her to wake up. I wanted her to wake up and get rid of Kozupi and Senna's bodies with her delusion power. And the police wouldn't come after us. Nobody had found us yet, right? I held back the urge to vomit and looked toward the door. On the other side of it was Kozupi's bloody corpse. Of the 2, it was more likely that they'd find Senna's body before they found hers. But once they found her, it would be all over. With Rimi still asleep, I had to do something to hide them. I was scared. I didn't want to look at a dead body, especially the dead body of someone I knew. I forced myself to go outside anyway, to protect myself and to protect Rimi. The sun had already set. It was dark on the roof. The moon wasn't out. The clouds had hidden it. I squinted and looked at the direction of Kozupi's body. Huh? I couldn't find Kozupi anywhere. The blood was still there, so it wasn't a dream. But the body was gone. How? Confused, I looked over to the edge of the roof of the street below. Nobody was down there. Senna's body wasn't there either. There was a pool of blood, but nobody seemed to have noticed it. Where was the body? When Rimi had passed out, the body had been there. Rimi hadn't used her gigalomaniac power to get rid of them. Then who? Ayase? But she was in a hospital in Yoyogi. Maybe Shogun? But he was my enemy. He wasn't going to do anything that would help me. What was going on? I sighed, feeling a mix of uneasiness and relief that the bodies were gone. I felt the prickling on the back of my neck. I was being watched. The same unknowable gaze. Shogun? Was he watching me?
僕を
Don't look
見るな
at me. I ran back into my room.
Huh?
Rimi was awake. She was looking around the room, with a confused expression on her face. She'd woken up, evidently, but what was I supposed to say to her? Rimi had been badly traumatized by the shock of killing Senna and Kozupi. Of course she was. It wasn't like Peking and ESO. She said she didn't mean to kill them too. I had no idea what to say to a person in that situation, so I said nothing at all. Rimi was looking at me, bewildered.
ここ
Where
どこか
am I?
な
Huh?
あなたは
Who are you?
誰
Something was wrong.
Ri-
Rimi?
リミ
What's
どうしちゃった
got it
の
into you?
リミ
Me? Me?
リミって
Who's
誰だ
Rimi?
ろう私かな
Is that me?
私
I'm not
リミ
Rimi.
じゃないよ
何言ってるんだ
What are you
よ
talking
しっか
about?
りしてよ
Snap out of it.
ねえ
My
私の名前
name.
は
My name is.
うーん
I don't know.
嘘でし
You're
ょ
kidding me.
嘘
This is
だ
the
よね
joke, right? I stormed over to Rimi. It's true. Suddenly, she ran up and grabbed me. She rubbed her cheek up against me like a friendly pet. Caught off guard, I had no idea how to react. Valid.
あなた
Who are you? Are you my
私のお
friend?
友達か
You
な
must be, yeah.
きっとそうだよねお友達
A
って
friend
ね
is somebody who's nice to me.
私に親切にしてくれる人のことあなた
You
は
won't
怒
get
ら
mad
ない
at me, right? I
私
don't like it when people get
怒ら
mad
れる
at
の
me.
やだあとね
And I don't like it when it
痛い
hurts
の
either.
すごく嫌だな
Amnesia. And not just that. Regression to being a little girl. I thought that only ever happened in H games. Definitely never thought I'd see it in real life. But maybe it was possible. Rimi had really freaked out when she killed Kozupi. And
ギガロマニアックス
every
となったもの
Gigalomaniac has been broken once in the
誰だろうと
past.
一度は壊れているんだよ
And that's what Senna had said before she died too. Maybe Rimi had broken. It made my heart commit suicide. The words came to me. I couldn't remember when I'd heard them, but I felt like someone had said them to me before. What if the shock of killing Kozupi and Senna had caused Rimi to make her own heart commit suicide? And what if the person I was talking to was a newly born personality? That explained why she was acting like a child. DID, dissociative identity disorder, multiple personalities, was the more common name. And that's what Yua had said I had. Of course, she was wrong. I didn't have DID. But what if Rimi did now? It was just a guess I had, but the Rimi in front of me now was far different than the one I knew. And this Rimi was nothing like the one who'd been so kind to me before, the one who told me she'd stay with me.
こんなの
I don't. I dropped to my knees. I felt awful. Rimi was looking into my eyes, confused. Her eyes were so pure, so innocent. I couldn't look back at her. Maybe I was lucky that Kozupi and Sana's bodies had disappeared. But with Rimi like this, who was going to protect me? Rimi had, if I could call her Rimi, totally lost her memories. Or maybe this Rimi never had memories in the first place.
私は
My name's Rimi?
リミっていうの
Yeah,
そうだよ
that's right. Rimi Sakihata.
先
Rimi
畑
Sakihata?
そうなんだ
Oh, I see. She spoke like the name meant nothing to her at all.
あなたは
Who are you?
お名前
What's your
なん
name?
ていうのかな
僕は
I'm Takumi
Nichijo.
Nichijo. She didn't even know my name. I felt a little depressed. Thinking about all the other things I'd have to tell her.
西条
Takumi ni Shisho.
タクだ
I'll
ね
call you Taku then. Huh? Taku. The same. She was calling me the same thing.
ねえねえ
Hey,
タク
hey, Taku. My hands are all sticky.
私ね手がベトベトしてるの
And there was dried blood stuck to her hands. It was dark black and belonged to Kozupi. At least, it probably did. Kozupi had disappeared, but the blood was still there.
ベトベト
I don't like having sticky
やだな
hands. She was looking at her hands glumly. I remembered Kozupi's smile and felt an aching pain in my chest. I tried to ignore it, and I went to get a wet towel.
ほら
Come on,
手
hold
出
up
して
your hands. Rimi nervously offered me both her hands. I wiped them with a towel. The white towel quickly turned red. I had to scrub pretty hard to get it all off. And I started scrubbing the spots between her fingers. It tickles. She laughed happily. She didn't seem to wonder in the slightest why she had blood on her hands. Why was I the only one who was concerned here? And why couldn't she wipe her own hands? Why did I have to take care of this little girl? No, I couldn't think that way. Rimi had tried to protect me, and whether intentionally or not, she killed someone in the process, and that had broken her. That's why I couldn't abandon her. It was partially my fault that she ended up this way.
ほら
Look, you're all clean now.
ありがと
Thanks.
うピカピカだ
My hands are all
私
clean.
の手すっきり
I
した
feel
よ
so much better. She got my hand and wrapped her fingers around mine. She was shaking her hands up and down innocently. She looked like a child, having the time of her life. For some reason, seeing her smile made me feel sad.
ね
Hey,
えリミ
Rimi,
君は
will you protect
Oko.
me?
守ってくれる
守る
Protect? What?
何を
僕を
Eh,
あのね 私ね
I really don't
よくわかんない
understand.
でもね
But you're my friend.
タクは
You'll be nice
私
to
のお
me,
友
right?
達だから私に親切にしてくれるよねだから
So,
ね
I'm glad you're here.
タクがいてくれてよかったよ
This is no good. There's no use counting on Rimi anymore. The Rimi who was going to protect me was nowhere to be seen. I sighed and my head slumped forward. Rimi didn't belong here. What was her home? I thought about calling her parents, but I didn't find anything good with their contact information on it or her things. The teachers at school would probably know, but it was too late in the day for that. I realized that I didn't really know much about Rimi. Where did she live? What was her family like? What was her birthday or her blood type? I didn't know anything about her. There was nothing I could do.
タク
Taku.
タク
Taku. Rimi was tugging at the hem of my clothing and calling my name.
ねえねえタク
Hey, hey, Taku.
私ね
I'm really
お腹ペ
hungry.
コペコ
What time was it? It was already dark outside. Time for dinner. But unfortunately, I didn't have anything in the house. I needed to go buy something.
何が
What
食
do
べ
you
たい
want to eat? Hmm? When you had amnesia, did you forget about food too? Maybe you didn't know what kind of foods there were or what they tasted like? Oh, I know.
あのね
I want soba
私
noodles.
お蕎麦が食べたい
お蕎麦
Soba noodles.
お蕎麦
I like soba noodles.
好き
You do?
なの
I do.
なんで
Mike,
食べた
have
こ
you
と
ever
ある
eaten them before? Needed them? Hmm? Maybe
ないか
not.
も。でもね、
But I like
お蕎
soba
麦は
noodles.
好きだよ。
What was going on? Were her memories coming back? Or did she keep the memories of the old Rimi's favorite foods and lose everything else? It'd be a big help to me if her memories came back, but I decided I might as well go to the supermarket to get some soba noodles.
リミ、
Rimi,
ここで待って
stay
て。
here.
絶対
Don't go outside
外に
for
出ちゃ
any
ダメだ。
reason. Okay.
ミシー。
Snap. I tried mimicking the pose that Rimi always used to do. I put one hand up to my head like a salute. Maybe this would help her remember something, I thought, but...
石？
Snap? What?
何？
That's really cool. It didn't work at all. She was looking at me with eyes filled with wonder and excitement. I suddenly became extremely embarrassed and ran out of the room. On the way to the supermarket, I looked around to see if any cops were nearby. Sana and Kozupi's bodies had both disappeared. If the police were nearby, that'd mean there was a witness. And if there weren't, that would mean nobody had seen what happened. If it was the latter, that might mean nobody was going to find out for a while. Of course, I also watched the shadows constantly to see if Shogun was lurking nearby too. Fortunately, I wasn't feeling the gaze of God, but still, I didn't want to go out at night. The dark scared me. And when I looked into the dark, I could see Sana and Kozupi dying in front of me again. I could see their mangled corpses. I quickly looked away and stared down at my feet as I hurried to the supermarket. Man, I want soba now. When I got back to the base, I pulled out the portable gas burner to boil some soba noodles outside. And there's no air circulation inside the container house, and there's a lot of stuff that was flammable too. It was too dangerous to do it inside. I tossed some soba into the pot. Of course, they were cheap, dry, instant noodles. Rimi was looking at the pot, fascinated.
お蕎麦って
So this is how you
こ
make
うやって
soba,
作
huh?
るんだね。
The pool of blood from when Kozupi had died was still there. It was almost dry now, and at night, it just looked like a dark stain. I broke down some of the cardboard boxes from my room and put them over it. It didn't actually help anything, but at least it saved me from having to look at it.
タク、
Taku!
こぼれそう
It's going to boil over! I went back to the burner when Rimi called my name. It was boiling too much, and at the point of overflowing out of the pot. Rimi was just watching it, letting out small gasps of amazement. She wasn't moving at all otherwise.
火を消して。
Turn off the heat! Hmm? Confused, she turned the dial on the burner and made it hotter. Wow, it's boiled over. Amazing.
いや、
No,
すごい
it's
じゃな
not
いでしょ。
amazing. I quickly shoved her out of the way and turned off the heat. A lot of the water had spilled out of the pot. Well, whatever. As long as it was edible, I didn't need to think too much about how firm the noodles were or how it tasted. I drained the noodles and washed them with cold water. I didn't know much of anything about cooling soba noodles. I just did it because that's what the instructions said.
冷やしとあったか
Do
い
you
の
want
と
them hot or
どっ
cold?
ちがいい？
Cold! I put them in a bowl and poured in some of the broth that I'd seen at the store along with the noodles. For toppings, it had green onions. I'd sliced them up and we were done. I hurried back into the room with Rimi in tow. I could clean up tomorrow when it was light. For now, I didn't want to be outside unless I absolutely had to. I could still smell the blood. And even though I knew it was silly, I was still scared. I felt like Sana and Kozupi might come staggering out of the darkness covered in blood like zombies.
ねえタク、
Hey Taku,
食べていい？
can I eat? Can I eat? Rimi didn't share any of my worries, it seemed. No, maybe that's why she changed from her last personality into this new one, so that she could forget the fact that she killed 2 people.
どうぞ
Go ahead. Yay! Let's eat! She grabbed the chopsticks. She was holding them like a fork. She put her lips to the bowl and slurped the noodles out. This is exactly how an lolly would eat. Thank you. Thank you very much. She'd forgotten how to use chopsticks too from the look of it. And forgot to make soba noodles to turn off a burner too. But she still knew to say, let's eat before she ate her food. It wasn't amnesia though. She just regressed to a childlike state. It's still amnesia. Like, smacks the back of Taku's head. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that that's because of the lolly comment, but like, that's still amnesia. Like,
食べられないよ。
I can't eat it.
え
Huh?
食べ
I
られ
can't
ない
eat it. Rimi was having trouble eating her noodles and getting frustrated. She was trying to eat them the wrong way, and it wasn't working.
食べさせて。
Feed me.
なんだ
What? Was she serious? Rimi wanted me to feed her? I felt like I'd become her nurse. No, maybe her father. Please, I couldn't handle having a daughter my own age.
たく
Taku! She begged me, exactly like a little girl would. I gave in inside. Okay,
ほら
open up and say,
あ
She brought her mouth down on the noodles I offered her and began to chew happily.
美味しいよ。
It's yummy.
それはいい
Good.
よかった
Suddenly, I realized. This was it. This was normal everyday life with a 3D girl next to me. This was what I wanted. I didn't need any dramatic events like in an H game. No getting involved in her deep psychological traumas. No minor misunderstandings that blew up into fiascos. No murders to solve. This daily life was far too boring to be in a game or novel. But this is what I wanted. And now I had it. And it was with Rimi too. To be honest, I thought Rimi was cute. She even said she'd protect me. I wanted to be with her forever if I could. But this was all a lie. This life wasn't going to last. And this Rimi wasn't Rimi. What I had now could end at any moment. And when I thought of that, it made me feel so sad, so lonely, so empty.
戻ってきてよ
Come back,
リミ
Rimi,
本当に戻ってくれ
I whispered.
メールだよ。
You've got mail, dork. I gasped. I heard Seiretan's voice from the computer. Somebody had sent me an email. Shogun? I had a bad feeling. Whatever was in that email, it wasn't good. I didn't want to see it.
僕を
Don't look at
見
me.
るな
I felt the gaze. Somebody was watching me. It felt stronger than it usually did. I looked around. Nobody was here but me and Rimi. I stopped feeding her, so Rimi had gone back to doing battle with her noodle bowl. She wasn't looking at me. Which meant there was only one person who could be looking at me. Whose eyes are those? I didn't even need to ask. I let out a moan as I headed to the PC. I checked my messages. Wake up. There's only one new message. Its sender was... Shogun. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it. What did he want now? Was he gonna kidnap Nanami for real this time? Or was he coming to kill me himself? The hairs on my body stood up in terror. The prickling at the back of my neck got even stronger. I felt sick. My head hurt a little too. Please, don't look at me. I opened the email with shaking fingers on the mouse.
あれ
Uh-huh. There was nothing there. The title just read Wake up. And there was no other text. Wake up. What was that supposed to mean? Awaken to my gigglomaniac powers or something? No way. I felt like Shogun had said something similar the first time we'd met. Stop messaging me. Stop messing with me, rather. Is it that fun to frighten me like this? I'm sorry to get mad. And at the same time, I wanted to get rid of the fear that was building up deep in my chest. I slammed my palm down against the keyboard. A noise came from the speakers. Had I broken something? Oh. I heard a sound. I heard something mixed in with the noise. I checked the PC, a little worried. That MP3 player wasn't running. It didn't have any video sites open in the browser either. I wondered if maybe Shogun had sent a virus along with the email, but there weren't any files attached to it. Again, I was hearing it again. It hurt to breathe. Sweat was beading on my forehead. Right. I could just kill the sound. If I muted the computer sound, this confusing noise would go away. I clicked on the sound icon in the bottom right of the screen. When the volume control menu popped up, I set everything to mute. No, I wouldn't have to hear anything. That noise almost sounded like a voice. Whatever it was, I wouldn't have to hear it anymore. I was tired, confused, and on edge. Of course I was. I'd seen 2 people I knew die right in front of me just a few hours before. And I'd seen something weird at the hospital when I went to see Ayase too. There was that weird call from Nanami. Whatever that noise was. It was just nerves. Wake up. The voice. And there's no time. It's from the speaker. The third melt is almost here. Sorry, the first time it says subject correctly, but then the second time it says subject. Subject. So true. I heard it clearly. It was him. Shogun's voice. Just like when he'd spoken to me at Scramble Crossing. How? I muted it. Taku? What's the third mount? Rimi looked confused. The expression on her face was still one of a childlike innocence. I rushed over to Rimi. I grabbed her by both shoulders and shook. Rimi, please, wake up. Ow, you're hurting me. Say it. Tell me you'll protect me. I can't handle this alone. He's going to kill me. Please, don't hurt me. I won't be mad at you. I need you here for me. So, please, don't hurt me. Tears fell from her eyes. I was scaring her. Her shoulders were shaking. I slowly let go. Please. Wake up. Nope. And there goes the third mount. Uh-huh. The floor began to shake violently. An earthquake? It was bigger than the last one? There was a violent ringing in my ears. The high-pitched sound of something resonating in a way that threatened to split open my head. It was like thousands of tiny needles being stabbed into my ears, my brain being thrown into a blender. And then... with a terrible impact, my vision turned white. It felt like my body was lying in lukewarm water. I was floating along the surface, gentle waves lapping at me. When I woke up, an impossibly blue sky stretched out as far as I could see. It felt like I could fall into it. It was a strange sky. There was no sun anywhere. Hadn't I just been in my room? Hadn't it just been nightfall? When did I go outside? When did it become daytime? During the last earthquake, I'd been out for over an hour. Maybe this time I'd been out for a whole night. Remember the terrible impact of the earthquake? It was like the rumbling of the earth had resonated with the blood flowing through my body, and the vibration threatened to tear me apart. Maybe this was heaven? Maybe I died in that earthquake? Heaven? Creepy otaku like me wouldn't be allowed to go into heaven. Especially since I was such a terrible older brother, and I couldn't even protect my sister. I'd even forced Rimi to kill Kozupi and Senna. I belonged in hell. Of course, if I had the chance to go to heaven, I'd take it though. My body felt weird. It was like I was walking on a fluffy cloud or something. I forced myself to sit up. I hadn't been imagining the waves lapping at me. The world around me was filled with clear water. I looked around and it was nothing but blue as far as the eye could see. I'd been lying on top of the water. Where was I? Was this really heaven? But it felt like I'd seen this place somewhere before.
あの空は
Where can I
どこ
find
にある
that
の？
sky? I heard a voice in my mind. A voice coming from within my memories. Yeah, that's right. I'd seen this in a dream. Rimi had been there. I'd been talking to Rimi as she looked up at the blue sky. She looked so sad. Was this the same dream? But I looked around, and there was nothing here but me. Nobody was here. Rimi wasn't here. It was all so silent. Rimi? I called out. I found I couldn't speak, but ripples appeared on the calm water. Are you here? Sounds are vibrations. The vibrations created waves. I could see someone lying in the water between the waves, just like I'd been a moment ago. I stood up. I could see further now. It was Rimi, lying between the waves. Her face was as pale as death. Her eyes were closed. Her hands were crossed over her chest. She wasn't moving at all, just lying there, face up. Rimi, wake up. But there was no response. She was probably dead. And it wasn't just Rimi. The world itself was dead. I stood there, confused. And then Rimi's body started to her body started to sink beneath the waves. By the time I realized what was happening, she was almost gone. How was I standing on water anyway? I got curious and looked below to me. It was nothing but darkness. The sky was so bright, the water seemed so clear, but below it there was endless eternal darkness, and Amy was sinking into it. I had to follow her. I needed her to wake up. But as soon as the thought entered my mind, the water suddenly gave way under me. I sank. My body got heavier. It was like I was underwater, but I could still breathe. And the water was so warm. There was something about it that made you want to stay here forever. Like it wasn't seawater, but amniotic fluid. This must be how a baby felt in its mother's womb. The darkness seemed to go on forever, but it had a bottom. It was too dark to see my feet, but I could feel something muddy up against the soles of my feet. I stood in the darkness. I looked up, but I couldn't see the water anymore. Here, the darkness hid the blue sky. The only thing to see by was a thin ray of light, falling down from above the darkness. It was illuminating a single point, like a spotlight. But there was nothing beneath it. It was lighting up an empty, meaningless point in space. I stepped into the light, nervously. It was warm and gentle, but my chest began to ache the second I stepped inside. What was this feeling? It made me want to cry. It made me feel so sad, but I didn't know why. Where was Rimi? What happened to her after she sank? I left the spotlight and searched around in the darkness with my foot. My toes quickly bumped into something soft and springy. I crouched down and touched it. It was so cold. I thought it would freeze my fingertips. Little by little, my eyes were getting used to the darkness. Then I realized I was touching a person. Rimi was lying there. Wake up. I shook her. Rimi, wake up. There was no answer. This Rimi wasn't breathing. I grabbed her limp hand and tried to take her pulse. She was dead. There was no pulse at all. Shocked, I looked around. This wasn't the only Rimi that was lying near me, dead. Countless Rimis were lying around me, like someone had entombed them here. They were all dead. I felt like this was a graveyard. The graveyard of Rimi's heart. Countless bubbles appeared before me. I could see that each of them had a different image inside. And somehow, I knew they were the memories of her deaths. My first memories are of falling rain and gray clouds covering the sky. When was it? I was still in elementary school. 6 years ago, maybe? It doesn't matter when it was. My memories aren't connected like that. I could see my dad lying there without a head, and my mom crushed by steel. A second ago, we'd all been in the car, happy to go on a family trip. And then a big truck came out of nowhere. The next thing I knew, it squashed the car flat. It hurt so bad, like my whole body had been torn apart. I could barely stay awake. I could still hear the sound of the squealing car brakes playing again and again in my ears. My next memories are the bright lights above the operating table, and of a man's voice. When was it? Right after I lost my parents. 5 years ago, maybe? It doesn't matter when it was. My memories weren't connected like that. You told your doctor you saw something like a sword, didn't you? Can you hear me, miss? It felt like he called my name, but I can't really remember what that name was. That name was already dead. Your wounds haven't healed yet, it seems. Losing your parents right in front of you was traumatizing, I assume. Very well. Simply listen to me, then. My name is NoAH. I'm the honorary director and sponsor of AH Tokyo General Hospital, the facility you're currently staying in. There's a possibility that you're a gigalomaniac. I'm hoping that I can get you to awaken to your power. Unfortunately, you now have no living relatives, or anyone left who could ask unpleasant questions. As of today, you have been declared dead. From now on, you live here in this basement. Can we beat up Norose, please? Like... There's nothing to be worried about. Only I know this room exists. Work hard and awaken. I have such high hopes for you. You're a guinea pig. We're going to try all kinds of things to see what it takes to awaken someone with your potential power. We'll be starting tomorrow. I just stared into the lights hanging from the ceiling. I didn't like the dark. My next memories were also with the bright lights above the operating table and of a man's voice. When was it? Locked in that basement, I quickly lost track of time. It doesn't matter when it was, my memories aren't connected like that. You're a very strong girl. Your skin is rotting away. You're bleeding. Why do you still try to endure the pain? Just awaken, and it'll all be over. I just stared into the lights hanging from the ceiling. They blinded my vision, made it so that I didn't have to look at anything else. My next memories were also the bright lights above the operating table, and of a man's voice. When was it? Locked in that basement, I quickly lost track of time. It doesn't matter when it was. My memories aren't connected like that. Does it hurt? I'm simply cutting away at the surface of the skin. It'll bleed heavily, but not enough to be fatal. In 3 days, infection will set in, and the itching will be terrible. That's when the real experiment will begin. Don't worry. I'm a doctor. I know how to use a surgical knife. Let's try cutting you in 10 or so places. I just stared into the lights hanging from the ceiling. They blinded my vision, made it so that I didn't have to look at anything else. My next memories were also the bright lights above the operating table and of a man's voice. And when was it? Locked in that basement and quickly lost track of time. It doesn't matter when it was. My memories aren't connected like that. It itches. It itches so much. I see. It itches, does it? But you're not allowed to scratch it. It's so itchy. The human body is a strange thing. It has a surprisingly high pain tolerance. Prolonged itchiness, however, is something it can't tolerate. Perhaps itchiness, rather than pain, is the more effective method of inducing insanity. It's so itchy. Itchy, itchy. I just stared into the lights hanging from the ceiling. They blinded my vision, made it so I didn't have to look at anything else. And then I killed myself. My next memories were also the bright lights above the operating table, and of a man's voice. When was it? I looked in that basement and quickly lost track of time. It doesn't matter when it was. My memories aren't connected like that. That resulted in a compound fracture of the upper left arm I see. And yet, you still don't awaken. What is it that's lacking, I wonder? Very well. I suppose that will have to do for today's experiments. Get some rest. I just stared into the lights hanging from the ceiling. They blinded my vision, made it so I didn't have to look at anything else. And then I killed myself. My next memories were also of the bright lights above the operating table and of a man's voice. When was it? Locked in that basement, I quickly lost track of time. It doesn't matter when it was. My memories aren't connected like that. Waterboarding was a torture technique used by the American CIA until quite recently, actually. Extremely cheap, extremely effective, and extremely painful for the participant. It's a form of water torture. It's amazing, in a way, that such a small amount of water is going to make you feel such a realistic sensation of drowning. It's the 21st century, and we're still using these traditional methods of torture. Don't you find that fascinating? I just stared into the lights hanging from the ceiling. It blinded my vision, made it so that I didn't have to look at anything else, and then I killed myself. My next memories were also of the bright lights above the operating table, and of a man's voice. When was it? I looked in that basement, and quickly lost track of time. It doesn't matter when it was. My memories aren't connected like that. I believe this is the first time I've used any form of anesthetic with you. It appears to have worked. How do you feel? You're presently paralyzed from the neck down. It's rather stressful, being unable to move your body, don't you think? I'm going to keep you like this for a year or so. Don't worry, you'll be given nutrients via injection once a day. How about just an IV line 24/7? Like, you're a doctor. Wouldn't you think that an IV drip makes more sense? Whatever. Goodbye. Have a nice year. I just stared into the lights hanging from the ceiling. They blinded my vision, made it so I didn't have to look at anything else. And in the light, I started to see glimpses of what looked like wings. And then I killed myself. My next memories are of the bright lights above the operating table. Just the lights, this time. When was it? Locked in that basement, I quickly lost track of time. It doesn't matter when it was. My memories aren't connected like that. No matter how much I screamed, nobody came. I didn't move. I couldn't move. I couldn't move a single finger. I just lay there, gazing into the lights hanging from the ceiling. There's nothing else to do. And in the light, I started to see what looked like many feathers dancing in the air. And then I killed myself. My next memories were also of the bright lights above the operating table. Just the lights this time. When was it? Locked in that basement, I quickly lost track of time. It doesn't matter when it was. My memories aren't connected like that. No matter how much I screamed, nobody came. I didn't move. I couldn't move. I couldn't move a single finger. I just lay there, gazing into the lights hanging from the ceiling. There was nothing else to do. In the light, I started to see what looked like many feathers dancing in the air. And then I killed myself. My next memories are of the bright lights above the operating table, and of a man's voice. When was it? Locked in that basement, and quickly lost track of time. It doesn't matter when it was. My memories aren't connected like that. You're certainly a disgusting sight. No, you? How did it feel to lie there for an entire year? To be nothing but skin and bones. To lie there covered in your own shit and piss. No trace of human dignity to be found. But don't worry, I won't kill you. These experiments have been going on for almost 3 years now, I think. I've come to take quite a liking to you. You might even call it love. You've become irreplaceable to me. Ew. Forcing a gigalomaniac to awaken is a long, difficult process. But I want you to awaken as fast as you can. I have such high hopes for you, miss. I just stared into the lights hanging from the I just stared into the lights hanging from the ceiling. They blinded my vision, made it so I didn't have to look at anything else. And in the light, I started to see dancing feathers and what looked like wings. And then I killed myself. How many of me have come before me? That's enough. Just stop it. I had no idea that such a horrible past lurked on the other side of her smile. I grabbed one of the Rimi corpses and held it to my chest. It was so cold. I could tell there was no soul within. But I needed her anyway. I want you to be here for me. I wished I created an illusion. Wake up. Wake up, Rimi. She was the one person who would protect me. I knew how selfish it was, but I wanted her to protect me. I knew I didn't have any right to say this after what I'd just seen, but still, it felt like if she was with me, I could change. I could stop being such a loser. So, wake up, Rimi. The next thing I knew, I was back in the blue world. The water was rippling with tiny waves. And up from below the water came countless Rimis. All of them had closed their eyes. They were standing motionless on the water. They all started to slide above the liquid surface without moving their legs. One Rimi overlapped with another, which then overlapped with another. The Rimis were all fusing together. They watched it all happen in shock. Before too long, there were just 4 Rimis left, and then 2. And then the last 2 Rimis fused and became one. Her eyes opened. She looked at me. Was this the Rimi I knew, or another one? I didn't know. I was afraid to speak. I waited for her to open her mouth. She smiled gently at me. Snap. And then she posed for me, just as she always used to do. Rimi? It's you, right, Rimi? Yeah. Rimi nodded, and then she gave me a big hug. I buried my face in her chest. I could feel the warmth and softness of her breast, buddy. Gravity disappeared. Rimi and I began to float in the blue. I heard your voice, Taku. You said, wake up, Rimi. I'm glad. I'm so glad. We laid there, and she held me in her arms, softly stroking my hair again and again. It felt so good, like her kindness was all around me. I felt safe, like when my mother had held me when I was young. I wanted to stay like that forever, but I had to make sure that this Rimi was the real Rimi. I lifted my head just a little to look at her. Will you cry for me? Taku, you're such a crybaby. She laughed loudly. She laughed, even though her past was so terrible. I remember all of it. All the things that I forgot by making my heart commit suicide. So many things. But maybe it would have been easier if I didn't remember. Definitely would be easier if you didn't, but that's okay, sweetie. Rimi. She looked like she was going to cry, but then she forced herself to smile and ran her fingers through my hair. Hey. Want to kiss? Huh? The next thing I knew, she grabbed my jaw and lifted up my head, and there was something warm and soft that smelled very, very good pressed up against my lips. Yumi's face was right in front of me. Her eyes were closed. I could feel her breath on me. So, this was a kiss. It was so sweet. It felt so good. I thought my brain would melt. And this one kiss filled my heart with love for her. He was a creepy otaku loser who couldn't do anything but depend on her for help. But still, I wanted everything she had. I closed my eyes. I tried to remember the feeling so I would never forget it. And when I opened them, we were back in my room. Rimi was lying on the floor, still holding me. My lips slowly parted. I'm back. Yeah. Rimi gave me a little smile. It was so cute. We stared at each other. It was really embarrassing. I didn't realize how soft a girl's body was. 3D was the best. I finally had a real girlfriend. Nobody could call me a creepy otaku loser anymore. I promised, didn't I? That I'd protect you. You'll protect me. I'll protect you all. Taku. Takumi. Nana. What was she talking about? She ignored my confusion and looked up at the ceiling. Last time, Takumi saved my heart. This time, you, Taku, saved my heart. So now, it's my turn to protect you both. I could understand why she was calling me both Taku and Takumi, but if a gigalomaniac like Rimi was going to protect me, then everything would be okay. No matter what Shogun said to me, Rimi would protect me. As long as I had Rimi, I didn't need anything else.
私
I'll do my best.
頑張るね
Okay?
頑張って
I'll do my best.
罪
To
滅ぼ
atone
し
for
をす
what I
るし
did. And repay you
あな
both
たたち
for
からの
everything
恩に
you've done for me.
報いるから
Was she talking about Sana and Kozupi? But that was self-defense. She couldn't blame herself for that. What I didn't understand was what she meant by both of you, though. What other person was she talking about?
だから今は
So, sleep for now, Taku.
たく
Each time she spoke, I could feel the vibrations coming from her body. Her fingers were still stroking my hair. It felt so good, and for some reason, I felt so sleepy. I felt so happy, falling asleep there in her arms. I closed my eyes. When Misaki Hata left the shipping container, the world was completely different than it had been before. A city of death. That was probably the best way to describe it. Several of the buildings in the vicinity had collapsed. The ones that were still standing had deep cracks in their walls.
サードメルト
And the third mount.
これほど
It's
だ
even
なんて
worse than I thought.
手遅れだったよ
We were too late.
野呂瀬
Genichi
健一は
Norose brought Noah
予
2
定より
online
早
at
く
full
ノア
power
2を
sooner
本
than
格
I
的に稼働さ
expected.
せた
The boy sitting in a wheelchair appeared on the roof. This was an old building, not built to accommodate people with disabilities. It was impossible for the boy to have gotten up here alone, but he was here anyway. Rimi didn't seem surprised to see him at all.
元の君に
You've gone back to the original you, I see.
元の私なん
And
て
there's no original
い
me.
ないよ
I guess you could say I've gone back to the me that Taku wanted me to be.
タクが望んだ私に戻ったっていう感じタクがそう
It made
望ん
me
でくれ
really
たこ
happy
とは
that he
さ
wanted me to be this way, though.
すごく嬉しかったけどね
彼はまた
And use this power without the
理想度なし
help
で
of a
力を
D
使
sword
った
again.
もう少し追い込
Apply
め
a
ば
little more pressure,
覚醒で
and
きる
he'll awaken.
タクのことは
Just leave
そっ
Taku
としておい
alone.
てあげて
Yumi cut him off.
ノア2は
I'll do something about
私
Noah
が何
too.
とかするナナちゃんも
I'll save Nana
私
too.
が助けるあなたも
I won't let you
死な
die.
せないよ
君一人じゃ
You can't beat
野呂瀬
Norose
に
by
対抗は
yourself.
できないそれに
And like I've
前から
told you
言っている
before,
けど
you should live a
君
normal
は
life.
普通に生きるべきなんだ
タクとね
I promised Taku.
約束したんだ
There's a fragile smile on Rimi's face as she looked up at the gloomy gray sky above her.
私が
I promised him that I'd
タク
protect
の
him.
こと守るって
Protect him. Ugh.
だから
So,
行く
I'm
ね
going. Okay?
ビシッ
Snap.
リミ
Rimi. Rimi walked past him and down the stairs. The boy couldn't follow her. He just sat back in his wheelchair and sighed.
自分を
Are you going to
犠
sacrifice
牲にす
yourself,
るつもりなの
Rimi?
リミ
Noah too, bringing of disaster, or perhaps the creator of mankind's utopia. Rimi didn't really care whichever it was, she was going to destroy it. Rimi knew where Noah too was. A shared awareness, quietly and cleverly slipped into the human mind. It was right in front of Shibuya Station. It was in a building that was supposedly been torn down years ago. Nobody suspected a thing. Nobody went inside. Rimi opened the door to what had once been a planetarium and stepped inside. Her eyes went wide when she saw what was inside. It was a device, impossibly huge and monstrous. The room was dome-like, with a device at its center. There was a small, eerie sound that echoed throughout the huge space. It was low, like a beast growling. The sound meant the device was online. NoAH too. Nana! Nanami Nishijo was being held right next to it. Her uniform was torn. There was a bloody bandage on her right hand, and her head was slumped forward, limp. She was terribly pale too. Rimi was struck wordless at the sight. Like Jesus nailed to a cross. No, it wasn't a cross that held her captive. It was a terrible, almost malicious shape. All of the evil in the world, all the chaos in the world, all the wickedness in the world. It was all of these things and more. Rimi quickly, cautiously looked around. There's no one else in the room but Nanami. She was looking for Kanichi Norose, the man who once was her torturer and was now the leader of the NoAH 2 project, But he wasn't here. She was surprised, but she decided to prioritize saving Nanami. She ran over to the strange object holding her. Nana, wake up! She brought Nanami down. I was relieved to see she was still breathing. The first thing she had to do was get her somewhere safe. She went to help her up, but... a terrible pain in her back, like something tearing through her. Rimi spat up blood. The blood fell on Nanami's clothes. It's been so long since we've met. And you're not even going to say hello. She turned around, trying to hold back to the pain. Kenichi Norose was standing right there. In his hand was the strange object that had been holding Nanami. It was a sword. It was Kenichi Norose's D-sword. And now it was stabbing into her body. Norose slowly pulled back his hand. The sharp blades of the D-sword slipped through her body, cutting into her bones. Rimi arched it back and began to flail from the pain. I thought you'd be used to pain by now. Norose's blade left her body. Her blood poured out everywhere. All the nerves inside her were screaming. The pain threatened to make her pass out. And that girl is my babe. Just how I'm going to lure Takumi Nishijo here. I can't have you taking her. Yumi knew exactly how powerful a Gigolo-maniac Norose was. He'd held her for over 3 years. She couldn't beat him in a head-on fight. She knew he wouldn't let her escape either. I have to get Nada out of here. The taste of blood was filling her mouth. She kept feeling a violent urge to vomit. The open wound on her back burned like it was on fire. She could barely move from the pain, and the blood just kept coming. She almost passed out. It was so cold. Her vision was going blurry. She could just barely make out the cruel smile on Norose's face. Maybe this was the end. Rimi couldn't even imagine a situation where she'd escape alive. The only thoughts in her mind were of pure despair. I'll give you my power. It was a voice she recognized. Takumi Nishijo, the boy who called himself Shogun. The voice was coming from far away, like telepathy. He used the same principles as mind reading, probably the only Gigolo-maniacs had. I'll give you my final delusion. Takumi? I'm sorry. I have to be the one to do something so hard. I won't try to change your mind anymore. I know it's impossible now. You plan on dying here, don't you? If there's a way to get out of this alive, I would have taken it. He didn't wake up. Now there's nothing I can do. But at least, I can give you my final delusion.
何
What
言
are
って
you
るの？
talking about?
あなたはそんなこ
You
としな
don't
くて
need
も。
to. Rimi screamed out to the person who wasn't even here.
君だけを
I can't let
死
you
なせ
be
る
the
わけ
one
に
to
はいか
die
ない
here when I'm the one who caused all
全ての
this.
元凶は僕なんだか
But
らもういいんだ
enough,
リミ
Rimi.
ノロセ
I want you to kill Norose.
殺して
I
ほ
want
し
you
い
to destroy Noah too.
ノア2を破壊僕がサポート
I'll
するか
help
ら
you. Rimi bit her lip, wiped away her tears, and tried her best to keep herself from passing out. She real booted her D-sword. Countless feathers fell from the sky. She raised the D-sword, holding Nanami in one hand. Blood was pooling at her feet. It hadn't stopped. It wasn't going to. Ha! Norase brought his D-sword down on her. Rimi blocked it with her own, making sure to keep Nanami away from the blade. But he was so much bigger than her. Her frail body couldn't handle the force of his attack. She flew backwards and collided with the wall. A crack formed on the wall of the planetarium. It was quite enough to let you live. And this is how you repay my kindness. Did you not suffer enough pain the first time? Norase slowly began to walk toward her. There was confidence in his eyes. Rimi was no threat to him. You're a pervert, aren't you?
だって
Rimi grinned, but her grin was stiff and frozen on her face. And then, for some reason, she swung her sword at the cracked wall behind her. The wall fell away, revealing the sky outside. It was raining. Dark clouds were hanging low above them. Trying to run away.
逃げないよ。
I won't run away, but...
でも
Rimi sat Nanami down on the ground. She held her from behind, keeping the D-sword in one hand.
ナナちゃん
Nanami has nothing to do with this. Rimi created illusion, a bright blast of light. When it disappeared, her D-sword was gone, and instead there were wings on the purest white on Nanami's back. The white wings, impossibly pure, enveloped her bloody body. She was like an angel, her appearance horrible to look at, but still beautiful. Nanami was unconscious, but the wings took flight, as if they had a will of their own. Rimi moved away from Nanami. As the Norose watched, confused, Nanami flew through the hole in the planetarium wall and out into the sky around them. She glided slowly away in the rainy Shibuya sky. Rimi watched her go, unarmed.
ナナちゃん
Nana,
無事
please,
で
be safe. So you used your delusion to turn your D-sword into wings? But you yourself aren't going to run? Norase was close enough now to kill her with the sword. A single movement of his arm would sever her head. She was watching him, however, with no fear in her eyes.
まだ
I can't run
逃げら
yet.
れないよ。あなたを
I have to kill you first.
殺さなきゃいけないから。
She brought a gleaming cross out from her pocket. It wasn't a cross, it was a stake. The same as the cross-shaped stakes used in the crucified murder. Rimi had just real booted it. Norase chuckled as he looked at it. Kill me? With that toy? You have no idea what it can do to you, do you? His attack was fast. The D-sword he held was bigger than he was, and it slashed open her side with a speed that was impossible according to the laws of physics. Only after her body staggered from the impact did she realize she'd been cut. She collapsed, screaming from the pain. Norase had deliberately used a less than lethal stroke. He could have killed her, but he chose not to. As she writhed on the ground in pain, he walked over to her and brought his foot down hard on her arm. gritting her teeth and panting for breath. She stopped moving. She had no choice but to stop moving. The tip of Nerose's massive D-sword was stabbed into her back, but he hadn't run her through yet, yeah. Let me hear you say it again. Stop. No. He pressed down hard as she begged for him to stop. The tip of the blade dug even deeper into her bloody body. It was like he was pinning it inside to a block. So, you said you were going to kill me? Or did I hear you wrong? Rimi was lying face down on the ground. She reached forward with one arm and grabbed Nerose's leg. There's a firm resolve burning deep within her tear-stained eyes. She glared up at Nerose from below. Yeah. I'll kill you. Nerose pulled out his sword and kicked her in the jaw as hard as he could. Her body rolled along the floor like a doll. You've grown to be quite the nasty little girl since we last met. You're of no more value to me. I let you live because I thought you might be of some further use, but I have no further need of you. Rimi was already at death's door. She got up and was trying to crawl toward me, but with no D-sword and no ability to walk, she was as good as dead. You're going to regret talking to me that way before you die. Perhaps I could spend the next 30 years torturing you every day. As I usually should, of course. Nerose's lips twitched. He stared at Rimi as the feathers fell around him. He formed a delusion. He held his D-sword tight. He expanded the channel to the Dirac Sea. The particles and antiparticles needed to manifest his delusion were born. Of those, he took only the former, and set them into Rimi Sakihata's dead spots, using his gaze. That's what I've been waiting for. What? Biblically accurate Rimi delusion, let's go! In an instant, the feathers turned to eyes. Until that moment, the eyes looking at Nerose had been Rimi's, but now he was surrounded by 1,000 eyes, all floating in the air. Whose eyes? What are those? This was the final delusion that Takumi had given her. The particles he created were blocked by innumerable eyes and never reached her dead spots, and then all the eyes linked with the Dirac Sea, creating antiparticles of their own. An impregnable defense against the Giglomaniac's power. Only Takumi Nichijou could create such a thing. Only a Giglomaniac with enough power to give life to an entire human being was capable of such a feat. And even then, only by using the last dying embers of his life. A monstrous delusion, given life by real bleeding. Nerose gasped in shock as the eyes surrounded him. Wherever he looked, there were eyes staring back at him. And more were appearing out of nowhere. Soon, he saw nothing but eyes, and the eyes were getting closer. An instinctive fear took over. He clenched his jaw and began to wildly flail about his D-sword. Blood spurted from the eyes as he struck, and they closed and disappeared. But behind him were more. No matter how many he destroyed, more came. Don't look at me! Then never open your eyes again. Nerose felt a pressure in his chest, and then a pain signal reached his brain. The eyes all disappeared, like a lifting fog. Yumi was right in front of him, and the cross-shaped stake in her hand was stabbed deep into his chest. Narose was dead. Imagine doing all the boasting that Narose did, and still getting died by the little stake. Yeah. After she was sure he was gone, Mimi dropped helplessly to her knees. She was bleeding badly, and her face was pale and clammy. She was barely even conscious. Her breathing was ragged and painful. Her vision had already gone dark. She could just barely make out the eerie sounds made by the still functional NoAH too. But I'm probably going to need someone else to destroy it.
ごめんね
I'm sorry,
タク
Taku. She whispered, her voice barely audible.
約束
I don't think I can keep my
守れそう
promise.
ないみたいナナちゃん
I saved Nana.
助けたから
I know that doesn't make up for what I did,
それ
but
で
I saved
罪
her.
滅ぼしなんかにはならないけど
She slowly raised her head.
助けた
She couldn't see it, but the wall of the planetarium in front of her was shattered. Beyond it lay the sky. It had been raining a moment ago, but what about now? She couldn't see what color the sky was now, but she looked up at it and smiled, just a little.
あの空を
I wish I could have seen that sky with
あ
you
なたと
again.
もう一度見たかったなタク
Taku,
ありが
thank
と
you.
う
I opened the door to the base and headed outside. A beautiful blue sky spread out before me. It felt like it had been raining just a moment ago. It must have cleared up in an instant. Yumi was nowhere to be seen. She disappeared without a word. She left me once again. I'd waited a few hours, but she didn't come back. Instead, waiting outside the room for me was... No. Shogun! The wrinkly boy in the wheelchair was looking at me. He seemed almost upset, like he didn't want to be here. I dropped to the ground in fear.
君は
You're afraid
これ
now?
から自由だよ
Huh?
僕は
I'll
あと
be
1
dead
時間
within
も
an
しないう
hour.
ちに生き絶えるだろう君に脅威を与
The
える
person who
存
was
在は
threatening you,
リミ
Rimi
が
killed him.
殺してくれた
I gasped when I heard him say her name. Rimi had gone to protect me.
青井瀬名と
I
折
hid the
原梢
bodies
の
of
死体
Sena
は
Aoi and Kozue
僕が隠しておい
Orihara.
たナナミは
Nanami was
病院に
taken
収容
to a
された
hospital.
だから君は
So,
もう
You're
自由
afraid
だ
now? What was he talking about? Wasn't he my enemy?
リミ
Mimi. What about her?
リミはどこ
Where's Rimi?
リミは
Mimi's
も
not coming back.
う戻ってこないよえ
Huh?
それじゃ
Goodbye. With a practice hand, he turned his wheelchair around until his back was to me. I blinked. In a span of less than a second, he was gone. What was going on? What had happened? I heard a low rumble in the distance. I looked toward the center of Shibuya and saw a single trail of black smoke rising up into the sky. Maybe there was an explosion? Something had happened. Something was happening. A riot? Something more supernatural? Maybe a fight between gigalomaniacs? I was so scared. I was so scared of the strange things Shogun had just said to me. I didn't want to go outside.
リミは
Mimi's
も
not coming back.
う戻ってこないよ
Yumi might be there. I felt strangely calm, even though she'd left me again. It was odd, but it didn't feel like she'd betrayed me. Instead, I was sure that she was somewhere out there, all alone doing her best for me. But Rimi, you've already done your best for so long. You suffered so much. You don't need to suffer anymore. It's not fair. I remember the soft feeling of her lips. I decided to go look for her. I decided to stop hiding in my room and being afraid. Things were about to change. For me and for her. Our lives were going to be different from now on. There were so many happy things, so many wonderful things waiting for us. We just had to believe.
朝一緒に
I'll go
学
to school
校行っ
with
て
you.
学校では
On break, we can talk about whatever.
お昼休みは
At
一緒
lunch,
に
we
ご
can
飯
eat
食べて
together.
夕方
And then in the
一緒に帰って
evening, we can go home together.
帰るついでに
Sometimes, we might stop someplace on the way back.
タックの部屋で
Or maybe,
ちょっとだ
have
け
a
お
little
しゃ
chat
べり
in
して
your room.
それで
And then,
また明
I'll
日
wave
ね
goodbye
手を振
and
って
say,
別
I'll
れ
see
て
you tomorrow.
そんなのでいいなら
If that's all you
私
need,
いく
I
ら
can
でも
give
して
it
あ
to
げる
you.
よそういうの
I always want to
結
do
構
something
憧れ
like
なんだ
that. I understood now what Rimi had meant. How much she longed for that simple, normal life. Thinking back, we hadn't spent much time together at all. But the time we did spend together was fun. It made me happy. My life had been so empty, so dead. When I was all alone by myself in the room, her smile had given me hope. She made me feel like a brighter future might be coming. She'd smile for me. So from now on, it was time for Rimi to smile for herself. I refused to believe that she wasn't coming back. This wasn't just my usual refusal to accept reality. This was my resolve. The only words I'd believe were the words of the girl who'd always said she'd be there for me, Rimi. Now, it's time to go. Go, Takumi Nishijo. Go and see Rimi again. I headed into the shattered remains of Shibuya. Wait for me, Rimi. I'll find you. And this time, it will be my turn to stay with you. There better be an after credits scene, or I'm throwing a fit. I don't see why there wouldn't be an after credits scene, with that being the ending. But if there isn't, I'm throwing a fit. The song is a bop at least. I don't know. After credit scene. no after credit scene. Are you fucking kidding me? Okay, I'm throwing a fit. Why isn't there an after credit scene? Like, if they did continue from there, just, sorry, there's a new thing in the menu that caught my attention immediately. I mean, that's what we're doing next time. The blue sky. They don't have words anymore. Lays on the floor, me too. But hey, the blue sky. Yeah, that's next week. And then that's it, that's the game. Screams. That's all I got, man. Just screams. Yeah. Sounds of despair. That's what we get. You weren't even here for the whole thing, that was a lot. Yeah! And now imagine being here for the full thing. Actually, you could do that easily, watch the VOD. I'm gonna give myself head pats because I deserve it. Also, I think there's a head pats redeem from like way earlier in the stream that I didn't do, but like I don't have records for it right now for I don't know why. Yeah. More head pats, yeah, good. I deserve them. I deserve all the head pats in the world, actually. Everyone's gonna die to death so hard at the blue sky ending? Possibly. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that's what happens. But, like, I don't know, man. I'm not ready for the blue sky ending. I'm really not. And I know I won't be ready for it next week. And then that's it. That's all of Chaos Head. Nothing else. I definitely want a buffer week before starting doing robotics, notes, robotic notes, whatever. I also need the game to work on my computer in an ideal world, but if it's still not working on crossover, I'll just borrow my mom's laptop, because I don't see why it wouldn't work on my mom's laptop. I'll catch you all next time. Tomorrow's more Zero Escape, blah 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 blah. Okay, bye bye. Bye.